Last weekend, we explored quantum mind living and quantum transformation. Today, we are looking into non-dual living, the quantum being mode living, where we experience the void, the nothingness, the emptiness with no self. And this way of life requires getting the heart and mind into quantum being mode, where as a quantum human, you detach from events, from circumstances, and situations that are impermanent. And instead, you as the quantum human, you focus on the internal observer who is observing the external world's ever-changing phenomena. And instead of participating in thoughts about the events and situations you face, you watch these thoughts like mental events. And this is metacognition, which is the shift from being the thought to observing the thought itself. And if you feel a doing mode urge you to track your phone or to go onto social media or to ruminate over the crisis that you are going through, simply label that as there is a physical fixed thought and let it go. Let it pass without acting on it. And as a quantum human, you are not a fixer. You are not striving. You aren't trying to achieve a special state. You just allow things to be as they are. And being mode accepts unpleasant feelings without trying to fix or to avoid them. When we focus on our problems, on our local identity, and on our limitations, all those that we are facing and seeing, we collapse our energy into a rigid, solid reality. And it stays as such. Because we keep observing the same version of ourselves. But when we get into being mode, we withdraw our focused judgmental observation. And by resting in the void, we allow ourselves to return to a state of pure potentiality. And throughout the day, we can tell ourselves, and you can say this to yourself right now, I am not this fixed result. I am the field of potential observing it. Say it again to yourself. I am not this fixed result. I am the field of potential observing the fixed reality. That is fixed reality. Say it again. I am not this fixed result. I am the field of potential observing this fixed result that I see as the challenge or the circumstance or the event that I am going through. So when we shift it and realize that we are not this fixed result, we shift our awareness from the form, from the particle, from the meat and bone, from this physical body to the frequency, the buzzing energy that moves the physical body. You are not this body. You are energy, you are frequency. And this means that you are non-local consciousness, momentarily localized in a human physical body. And in the void, in the nothingness, in the emptiness, you are already everything. And we will understand these terms later. So the void represents the 0 point. And the 0 point is that state where you are no longer acting out of habit, of those conditioned autopilot systems. In the 0 point zone, you are pure. You are unconditioned presence. And integration involves holding the silence. And if the void is the source of potential and is the place of all those infinite possibilities, the goal is not to cross it, but to dwell within this void, within this 0 point, within this nothingness, within this emptiness, within this non-dual state. We'll get to understand that later, what it actually means experientially. So you can participate in this through the paradox of potential. And this is what the paradox of potential says. The less you try to be, the more you are. Just being, not doing. When you stop narrowing your focus to a specific something, you return to the nothingness that contains all things. So what is this being mode? Quantum being mode living, or simply quantum living, is a philosophical and spiritual approach to life that combines principles of quantum physics with mindfulness, aiming to move from a state of passive existence, which is Newtonian survival mode, into an active, intentional creation of one's thrival mode reality. Wouldn't you love that? And it is based on the idea that at the most fundamental level, we are interconnected energy. We are quantum beings at the subatomic level of things, rather than isolated solid objects, and that our consciousness can shape our experience of reality. So to step into being mode is to stop acting like a solid particle and start living as a wave. Can you start living as a wave function? When you view yourself as a quantum being, you move from the heavy, predictable Newtonian doing, which is about cause and effect and effort and struggle, and you shift into the fluid, high potential state of the void. And you can transit from the doing mode into a state of focused attention when you get into the void, into that non-locality, into that no self, no ego, no mental clutter. And you move beyond sensory grounding into pure consciousness. So what does resting in the void or emptiness or living in the being mode mean essentially? The void is not a nothingness of lack, but it is a nothingness of potential. Let us understand this very well. It is the silence from which sound emerges. And most of us, we approach the void with a sense of fear of empty space, viewing it as a cup to be filled with more doing, more noise, and more achievements. However, By seeing it as the silence from which sound comes out of, you are describing the transition from the fixed self to a flowing self. And this is the cornerstone of being mod. Recognizing that when we stop defining ourselves by our past or our productivity, we don't disappear. We become the space where everything is possible. And to live in being mod is to sit comfortably in this space of emptiness. This gap is a fertile pause, and it is viewed differently by the doing mod and seen differently by the being mod. In the doing mode, this gap is the schedule that you have to follow. It is that problem that needs to be fixed. But in the being mode, this fertile pause, this gap is the emptiness that allows for spontaneous insight, that allows the breath between the notes that gives the music of your being its meaning. Being mode, therefore, focuses on those gaps instead of the objects. Right now, as you listen to this presentation, you are in a room. You are seated on the chair. Is your attention focused on the gap between the objects, or it is fixed on the objects in the room? Because being mode focuses on the space between the objects, not the objects, because the objects are particle and the space is wave. So instead of focusing on your thoughts, can you focus on the silence between the two thoughts? Because when we do that, we dissolve form, we dissolve particle, recognizing that everything we perceive is a collection of changing parts. And by refusing to label or grasp these forms, these objects, they lose their solidity and return to the void, return to emptiness, and return to nothingness. When we look at embracing non-locality, in being mode, your consciousness is not trapped behind your eyes. Your consciousness is non-local, meaning that it is beyond physical space. And when we close our eyes and try to find the edge of our awareness, does our consciousness have a boundary? It does not. We can shift our perspective from being a point in space to being a field itself, from being particle to being wave. So imagine that you aren't looking at the world, but that the world is becoming aware of itself through your specific coordinates. To have a quantum presence, we have to acknowledge that the here and there are simply mental constructs. In pure being, there is only an undivided now moment presence. And this is the non-duality that we are talking about. And in this non-duality, transformation occurs when we stop trying to be self, to be someone, and instead we allow ourselves to simply be. When you are no longer clinging to a specific identity, the successful professional, that title, when there is no self we identify with, we are into non-duality. We are into the void. We are into emptiness. And we enter the void of potential when we can respond to the present moment with freshness. And this is the unconditioned state. And most of our actions are reactions to past conditioning. So would you rather be an unconditioned state, or that state that is already pre-coded for you in your subconscious mind because of all those autopilot conditioning because of past experiences? So quantum personal growth and development and transformation into being mode represents a shift from a doing mindset that is focused on effort, that is focused on linear progress, that is focused on external validation, to a being mindset that is focused on presence, on inner awareness, and alignment with energetic potentials. And this approach facilitates rapid nonlinear transformation, often called quantum leaps. A quantum leap in your consciousness and a quantum leap in your life circumstances. And this perspective views individuals not just as physical bodies, but as a wave, as energy beings living in a sea of vibrating frequencies. And all change is believed to begin at this fundamental quantum level. So transformation into being mode is transitioning from a state of constant reactive doing to a state of conscious presence and alignment with the quantum field. And moving from a mode of doing to a mode of being is a shift from performance-based growth to internal presence. Getting into your inner hermitage of stillness. And while traditional personal growth focuses on acquiring skills and achieving goals, transformation to being emphasizes presence, surrender, and integration. And doing mode is focused on the ladder of progress and measuring success, while being is focused on the spiral of existence, unwinding cultural conditioning and practicing mindfulness and allowing your essential being to unfold in the now moment of presence. And getting into being mode is shifting our brain from a state of striving and solving and fixing to sensing and accepting and letting go. The doing mode focuses on the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And being mode is about direct non-judgmental experience of the present moment now, where past and future occur in the present moment of the now. And quantum being mode living involves taking on the role of a conscious creator of your own experience rather than just reacting to external events, circumstances, people, and places. Let's put it all together so that we can see that nothingness and emptiness and the void and no self are all part of non-dual living. So the void, emptiness, nothingness, and non-dual living in Eastern philosophy, they describe the true nature of reality beyond the dualistic material world of me and you, good and bad, up and down. It is a nothing. It is not a nothing, but a nothingness, a state of pure awareness, potentiality, and absence of a separate inherent self. It's an absolute non-being, a sense of vastness, a sense of openness, and the potential of existence. The void is the emptiness inherent in all things. And according to these Eastern philosophies, this is what they say. To say that something is empty isn't to say that it doesn't exist, but it is to say that it does not exist in the way we perceive it as permanent, separate, and solid. Things are empty of independent, permanent, or inherent existence of solidity and separation. And this is what emptiness and nothingness means. And emptiness is freedom from attachment to separation and to things. And emptiness is the absence of a separate egoic self. Now let's get to the topic that is closest to my heart. Non-dual living. It is possible, but it is very foreign to the culture that we have been brought up into, and it is foreign to the egoic mind. Non-dual living or non-duality is embracing the interconnectedness of everything, recognizing the unity and interconnectedness of all things. We live on a planet governed by boundaries, by national borders, and the fundamental split that shapes our entire experience, which is me and the other, right and wrong, past and future, success and failure. And this duality is not just a way of seeing the world. It is the operating system of our human mind. And while this separation helps us navigate daily life, it is also the silent source of all suffering that we experience. Non-duality is the philosophy of unity, and it offers the answer to this fragmentation, to this duality. And this recognition can transform your daily life. Are you ready to venture into non-dual living? And this non-dual living is seeing beyond the illusion of separation and embracing the wholeness of existence. It's not about achieving a special state or escaping the world, but being present with what is happening in the now present moment, whether it is washing dishes or taking a shower or digging or walking or eating. Non-duality living begins exactly where division of me and you, up and down, wrong and right, falls apart. It is the experience of life where the distinction between subject and object, self and the world, is recognized as a mental construct invented by our mind and the ego. Non-dual living is a pure, undivided space of the fullness of an undifferentiated, non-local awareness of reality, embracing the space of the void, embracing the space of emptiness, embracing that nothingness, experiencing a non-dual state of the eternal present moment of the now. That sense of being inherently part of everything around us, rather than a separate individual watching a separate world. Non-dual living is seeing beyond the illusion of separation and the illusion of solidity. It is a perception of reality beyond physical reality, beyond thought, where the ego is dropped, where there is no mental noise, where there is no projection, no judgment, no criticism. It is where we are able to experience unity in the world of opposites. And when that happens, we can see things with clarity without any doubt. This non-dual living is about effortless action, where actions arise spontaneously, free from the conflict, from fear, and from desire that stems from the illusion of a separate egoic self. It is unconditional presence characterized by a natural acceptance of all conditions that we face and experience, allowing for an inner peace regardless of any external circumstance. This non-duality living is resisted heavily by the world and the mind, because the world and the mind resist this unity. Because the mind creates duality and separation. And non-duality invites us to recognize that the separate self is the only illusion. And that is why unity is so difficult. And it is very difficult for the ego identified mind, because for this ego identified mind, unity feels like a death sentence. The ego fears non-duality. The ego fears unity. The ego fears emptiness, nothingness, and it fears the void, because it thinks in that void it is going to lose itself. It's going to lose its identity. It's going to lose the separation it has created. And the ego fears non-duality because it requires the loss of its personal identity. As we get to this point in life, and as participants during this course, most of us, including myself, we've lived in the mind, in conceptual understanding. And that is why trying to understand unity with the ego is like trying to turn off light using light itself. And this requires us to go back into that childlike state. Let us now look into non-duality living and how it is unto those who are like children. The innocent, that non-dual child. I invite you to pay attention very well. Non-duality living entails adopting a childlike, innocent, non-judgmental awareness, free from the rigid me egoic structure that divides experience. Like young children, this state embraces the direct present moment. This direct present moment experience, fostering a natural, effortless sense of unity and peace, rather than dwelling in the concepts of self-reflection. And to live in non-duality, to live in non-duality is compared to a childlike state. It represents the return to pure awareness before the ego develops a rigid sense of me versus the world. Childlike mind is an ideal. It's open. It is untainted. It is not distanced from the existence by complex system or rigid intellectualizing. While a child is pre-rational and dependent, the non-dual adult is transrational and retains their skills and responsibilities, but operate from that same original innocence and unity. And this state isn't about becoming infertile. It's about stripping away the heavy conditioning and mental chatter to regain a natural state of being and awareness. So let's look deeply into what emptiness, nothingness, and the void means in the context of children. Remember the time you were a child. This will help you to experience this right now. As children, we may encounter the void through play, through imagination, through existential reflection, often before children develop formal concepts of existence. And children imaginative spaces is where they do what we call pretend play, which creates spaces of potentiality where everything and nothing coexist in that void while they are practicing pretend play. So encouraging playful immersion is undetermined or empty spaces that support creativity and resilience. Mindfulness and meditative exercises adapted for children can foster early non-attachment and an experiential understanding of the void or emptiness as a source of potential rather than anxiety. So awareness of existential voids should be scaffolded to match developmental stages, ensuring psychological safety while engaging with the profound concept of absence. Children experience emotional voids, which are feelings of solitude. Remember when you used to love being alone as a child. And this may correspond to existential nothingness, beingness, just being. And unlike adults, children may experience nothingness more fluidly, combining perceptual, emotional, and imaginative awareness without fully abstracting it into philosophical concepts. As a child, remember the things you would have seen that if you were to see them right now, you would think you're going crazy. Some children see angels. So infants possess concrete experiences, and recognition of conceptual nothing emerges around age 6 to 12. And teens begin to integrate abstract understanding of void, time, and existential uncertainties, often influenced by narratives, stories, or spiritual teachings. So are we beginning to understand the void, emptiness, and nothingness? And knowing that they aren't solely absence, but are dynamic experiential realities shaping consciousness, freedom, and creativity. So children freely encounter these concepts through imagination, through emotional experience, and laying the foundations for later philosophical, spiritual, and existential reflection. What you experienced as a child is now evolving as the inner journey into the inner hermitage that you are taking. And far from being negative, early engagement with nothingness introduces potential for growth, for awareness, and for authentic selfhood. So experiencing nothingness in children is a precursor to creative imagination and symbolic thought, to emergent understanding of mortality, self, and relationships, and also to ethical and spiritual awareness, recognizing both potentiality and limitation. Now let us look at ourselves as adults. Can we experience the wonder and awe of a child by treating life as fun? Adults can rediscover the joy and awe of childhood by slowing down, by embracing curiosity, by engaging in nature, allowing ourselves to play and explore creatively. And we can also embrace curiosity and play. Children live with a natural inquisitiveness, asking why, exploring without fear of making mistakes. Children are always asking why. Aren't your children asking you why and why and why, where they came from? And they explore without fear of making a mistake. If as adults we could do that, that would be non-duality living. As adults, we can cultivate similar curiosity and question our surroundings and try new activities and revisit our childhood interests, what we were passionate about as children. This might bring back the fire into our hearts as retired old citizens. So reflecting on how you would respond at age 7, remember when you are 7 years old. How would you respond as a 7-year-old to the scenarios that you are going through right now? Because this can help you tap into your inner creativity and sense of fun. Whatever it is you are going through right now, see it with the awe and wonder of a child. It might be a breaking up relationship. It might be the ending of a job. How can you reframe it with the awe and wonder of a child? We can also engage with children in conversation or play. This also provides us an opportunity to experience the awe and wonder from fresh perspectives. So in summary, to live with the wonder and awe of a child, there are 5 things that you can do as an adult. And the first one is to be curious and playful daily. Find yourself jumping around. You can slow down and practice mindfulness. You can engage with nature and the surroundings. You can explore creativity and unique perspectives. And you can cultivate social connections and share experiences. And by integrating these habits, life for an adult becomes more joyful, more inspiring, and transformative, allowing us as adults to experience astonishment, joy, and connection similar to a child's natural wonder. Now I will take you into non-dual living and neurotransmitters and the brain states involved. Inside the brain exists a system known as the default mode network. We'll get to understand what that is later. And there are neurotransmitters that interact with this default mode network. And we'll get to those transmitters later as well. The default mode network, when we get into it, when we are in a non-dual state, it causes a reduced self-referral thinking, and an increase in non-dual awareness. That sense of unity, where the distinction between the self and the external world becomes less pronounced. And non-dual awareness is linked to increased gamma brainwave activity. Remember, we have 4 brainwave states. There is the beta, where we are hyper, working, doing this and this and that, especially when we are in stressful situations. Then there is the alpha that we get into as we get relaxation. Then there is the theta that is deeper than the alpha that we get into when we are in deep meditation or deep contemplative prayer. Then the gamma comes straight after that, where we drop into unity with all things. And when we get into that mode, the ego dissolves temporarily. The brain becomes more integrated. The fragmented brain regions communicate more harmoniously. Emotional centers calm down, and the prefrontal cortex is more into clarity of mind with attention and presence. The brain has 2 major modes. It has the predictive selfing mode of past, future thinking, of identity construction, of fear, of planning, of rumination. And then it has another mode known as the direct experience mode of presence, silence, deep attention, and perception without narrative. So this predictive selfing mode is like working out of the physical fixed mode or the doing mode. And this other second mode of direct experience mode is likened to the being mode, to the wave experience. So when the direct experience mode takes over your brain, even if it is briefly, the default mode network of your brain fades. And this is why meditation and conscious breathing and nature and music and deep focus and love and awe and surrender all trigger mini non-dual states. And you can train your brain to touch oneness when you get into that direct experience mode of presence. And people who experience oneness, like monks or meditators or people who are in flow, or people who have experienced near-death experience, or people who are in moments of immense cosmic love, quantum love, they all say the same thing about the non-dual state. Because they say it felt more real than the normal reality I have known. Hello? And neuroscience supports this. And during non-dual states, the mental rumination shuts down. Mental rumination shuts down. Sensory clarity increases. You can even feel the energy that is flowing through your spine. And time perception dissolves when we are in that non-dual state. and the brain stops projecting its usual distortions. Now let's look at the neurotransmitters involved in the non-dual state. The first neurotransmitter is dopamine. Dopamine is a happiness hormone, and it is linked to self-awareness, to reward processing, and reducing the sense of the separate self. That is dopamine. And serotonin, involved in mood regulation and emotional processing, is the influencer of the non-dual state. I love this. And GABA, which we get into when we get deep into meditation, helps with relaxation. It reduces anxiety, and it promotes a sense of unity. So love dopamine for reducing the sense of separate self, and serotonin for influencing the non-dual state, and GABA for promoting a sense of unity. So let us put together the key aspects of a childlike non-dual living mode. The first one is innocence and presence, because children under 2 to 3 years of age live in a state of relative non-duality, and they haven't yet developed a strong, separate me self. They are in the now. They are not stuck in past or future anxieties. Key aspects number 2 of childlike non-dual living include: there is that absence of selfing. Non-duality requires abandoning the constant internal commentary of self-reflective thoughts that create the illusion of a separate self or a separate individual. This, that, and I will, I was, I won't, I will be. And the third aspect of childlike non-dual living includes the absence of separateness. Just as a young child does not yet have a centralized sense of a separate self or ego, non-duality points to a reality where I is not distinct from the rest of existence. And the fourth aspect of childlike non-dual living is living in the now. Children naturally dwell in the timeless present. They are not burdened by past regrets or future anxieties. And non-dual living recognizes that past and future are illusory thought constructs. Key aspect number 5 of childlike non-dual living is vulnerability and trust. Spiritual teachings taught that one must become like a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. We have taken that literally, but this kingdom of heaven is the kingdom of love. It is the kingdom of oneness. So being like children implies a state of being open to the experience of life without resisting it, but flowing with life, and being humble and free from worry and stress. Concept number 6 is unity of experience. Children see beyond illusion of separation, and they recognize that everything is not two. You must have lived in a family a blended family. And in this blended family, a new child has just been brought in. And this family, child coming into this family, will ask the members of this family if their other siblings and neighbors can come live with them. Because to these children, they are one with everything. They are one with the other. And the seventh core concept of children living in non-duality is unfiltered expression. A child experiences emotions fully and then lets them go without the mental commentary or sulking that we adults often layer onto our feelings. And the last one is lack of pretense. The childlike state is free from the masks, from the personas, from the posturing of adult life. It is a state of radical honesty and vulnerability, seeing reality without the filters of judgment or label making. Now let's look at the key aspects of personal transformation into the being mode. The first one is shifting from doing into being, because transformation involves moving away from just checking off goals, which is doing, to cultivating a state of awareness, which is presence, and intentionality, which is being. And key aspects too for personal transformation into being mode is surrender and acceptance. Because unlike growth, which requires efforts and action, transformation often requires surrendering to the present moment and accepting oneself, allowing for deeper healing. And the third concept is the being state. Being fully present, being fully mindful, authentic, and not chasing for the next lesson or the next improvement. And key aspect number 5 of personal transformation into being mode is rebuilding the identity. And transformation involves unwinding the cultural conditioning, the judgments, and the old patterns, creating space for a more authentic self-expression. You might be wondering why I brought the key aspects of personal transformation into being mode after talking about the key aspects of a childlike non-dual living. Because unless we get back into being like a child, into that childlikeness state, it might not be easy for us to embrace the being mode, to transfer into the being mode. And transferring into a being mode requires us to relinquish the local identity, the local self. By local, I mean that identity that we have given ourselves when we are in this local plane of the material physical world. So doing mode relies on a central I, that I that is managing tasks. And to deactivate this local identity, we have to investigate the I by 3 things. First and foremost, the self-inquiry. Ask yourself, who is witnessing this present moment? Who is witnessing what I'm going through right now? And when you discover that you are not what you are looking at, you are consciousness that is being aware of what you are going through, that self-inquiry will help you to deactivate the self you thought you had. Because when we get to the second, when you find out that there is no solid self there, only what you will find when you are doing that inquiry, you will find thoughts and memories and sensations passing through. And you will realize that there is no thinker behind the thoughts. There is only the process of thinking. The I self begins to dissolve. And the result, you move from being a person in the world to being the space in which the world arises. So relinquishing from the local self, we do the inquiry, we shift from the solid self to the wave self, and three, the result will be seeing ourselves as a space, not as a person in the world. As we get towards the end of this presentation, how are we going to practice quantum living, that being mod? There are 4 things that we can do. The first one is to cultivate inner freedom. We can shift from being controlled by outer circumstances, by other people's wills, by societal expectations, to focusing on the internal freedom of who we already are, as peace, as whole, as love, as abundant, as healthy already. And 2, we have to match the energy. This means that to bring about a desired outcome, we have to match the energy of the reality that we are thinking of having with the reality of what we are saying, doing, and thinking. Because with our thinking and emotions and actions, we are producing a vibrational frequency that is emitted into the environment. So when we want to become abundant, what thoughts, what emotions, what choices are we making? Are they aligning with the energy of abundance? And the third thing that we can do to practice quantum living is regulating our nervous system. A dysregulated nervous system creates static that disrupts our ability to draw to ourselves that future self that we want to draw to ourselves. And a quantum being heals their nervous system to create a clear, coherent signal. Because when we are in stress, we are in the sympathetic nervous system, and we are in the doing mode. When we get into the being mode, we transfer into the parasympathetic system that calms our brain, and we get into theta and alpha, and we are into the gamma neurotransmitter, and we get into oneness, we get into being, we get into non-duality living. And lastly, when we have gotten to that, we embrace beingness. Instead of constantly doing to make things happen, to fix, we shift into a state of being, a state of calm that is centered awareness that attracts rather than forces outcomes. And this brings us to instant transformation. You can change and transform virtually everything in your life in a matter of seconds as you have some fun playing with the rules of the quantum physics. Everything in the quantum realm is connected. What you think is your emotions might as well be somebody else's emotions. It's just that you aren't consciously connected and able to experience others' emotions as your own. And this is entanglement. What we do, say, and think as consciousness affects others all the time. And it sends ripples within the quantum film to create matter. So your consciousness reflects everything you have experienced when you are creating your reality. What you experienced as a child, that past that could be affecting your experience right now could as well be somebody else's mistake. And you are now unconsciously, falsely referring to it as truth when you are acting out your life today. Are you still creating your reality based on false information of what happened to you in the past? That will not bring you that instant transformation that you need. And no wonder things aren't working out as you wished. So instant transformation can help you to release the reality that no longer serves you and let you take in a reality where the challenge no longer exists. A reality where you can live free from any physical, emotional, or mental limitation that keeps you from experiencing the life you long for. So when we work with instant transformation, we work with how we perceive our reality and the meaning and interpretation we give to the reality we are going through. Those events, those situations, those circumstances. It's not what happens to us that causes us distress. It is the meaning and interpretation we give to what happens to us that causes us either distress or bliss. Let me hope we have gotten this one very clear. Because your experience of the world in and around you is a perception of what's happening based on everything you have ever learned, consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously. And you can often easily change what lies in your subconscious mind. But you have to reach the patterns and perceptions that control your reactions from the subconscious mind. So instant transformation opens the door to what inhibits or creates pain so that you can choose to meet your challenges, your situations and circumstances without having to experience the discomfort. And you will uncover the underlying blockages where working and when you are working with instant transformation. So let's end with this quantum being activation exercise. And the first step is to dematerialize. Sit quietly and visualize your body not as solid matter, but as a cloud of shimmering light particles. See the space between the particles. Now merge and visualize the particles of the cloud that is you, mixing with the particles of the air that you are breathing in right now, and the particles of the room where you are seated right now. And by focusing on the space, and by focusing on the cloud and not the particle, you are realizing that there is no boundary where you end and where the room begins, or where you begin and the breath you are taking in ends. There is no boundary. It's just a field of energy. Abide in the field and stay in this state of non-local energy. If a thought about a task, about doing more arises, see it as a tiny ripple in the vast ocean of your energy. Don't chase the ripple. Stay in the ocean. You are that ocean. You are that vast ocean of your energy. See that ripple of the doing mode that is arising. See it as a tiny ripple in the vast ocean of your energy. And abide in the field of energy. And as you abide in this field of energy, as all the mental noise has calmed, engage your senses. Move your energy from thinking to sensing. Feel the inner body. Feel the tingling. Feel the buzzing. What sensations are you getting? Whatever sensation you are getting right now, that is vibrating in every area of your cells, in every cell of your body, that is your quantum field signature. Focus on the vibration until the sense of having a solid shape disappears into the void. And to abide in these sensations, you can use the 5-5 method to ground yourself. Identify the 5 things you can see, the 5 things you can hear, the singing of the birds, the whistling of the air. And you can identify the 5 things you can feel, like the texture of your cloth, how it feels on your body, or the air on your skin. The moment we engage our senses, we are completely dematerializing. And all that we can see and sense and feel, we are not seeing the particle. We are sensing the wave. And in sensing the wave, we are in being mode. We are in non-duality. We are deeply into the void, into the nothingness, into the emptiness, where we are everything and everything is us. Nothing is lost, nothing is missing. Everything that we need is right here in this void, in this emptiness, in this nothingness. And it is out of this nothingness, this emptiness, this void that we can create when we ourselves have matched the frequency of the wave and are seeing ourselves as a molecule drifting in the vast sea of the quantum field. Because out of this vast ocean of the quantum field is where we can create as wave and create that future self that we desire. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, you can get back into your chair, get back into the room, open your eyes, and shake your hands so that you can get back into where you were before we dived into the meditation. I hope you have liked this presentation. Have a very good evening. See you next time. Thank you, and thank you.